Three. Hello and welcome to My Southern Exposure Media Group, LLC, our second season, episode number 2. Today's date is August 30th. There's a lot of information to go over with the show tonight. Luckily, I bribed my co-host, Rajina Reinsing, to come back a second time. She's a little bit further away from me in another room, but she's still eating pickles and also had a little bit of chicken and dumplings and also some deviled eggs. But anyways, that's pretty much the story. Lots going on down here in southern Florida. We are in the middle of a big rainstorm currently right now, so luckily all of us are inside. Basically, this episode is all about current events, which there are not a lot of good things to talk about with current events. However, we all have our own perspective about what's going on. That's part of the reason why all of you watch us on a regular basis. We've had over 60,000 views over the last 14 weeks, and the amount of people who watch us on a regular basis continues to increase, and we are very thankful that you are watching. If you want to get in contact with me, it's Joseph at mySouthernExposure.site. That's Joseph at mySouthernExposure.site. I'm going to just pass it over to one of my best friends, Raji Reinsing. Let us know what's going on in Raji world.
Okay, I'm here. Here I am. Well, there's always a lot going on in Raji world. What can I say? I'm quite a busy woman, but I'm so happy about this show because we have some juicy stuff to talk about. And I'm looking forward to our conversation. So I want to welcome everyone back to another edition of My Southern Exposure. And if you want to get in contact with me, it's Raji at mySouthernExposure.site. Mickey, what have you been up to and what do you have to say?
Hey guys, thanks for the intro, Raji. This past week, I was just explaining to my two co-hosts, it's been the same as ever, not really doing too much other than if I go out, I'm going to protests or I'm going to the grocery store. There's really not much else to do. But if you can go out to protest, please keep it up. As we've seen this past week, a lot of right-wing militias have infiltrated certain cities, including Portland being the most prominent one, Kenosha as well. And these people are going into towns, they're inciting violence, they are pepper spraying people, they are shooting at people with paintball guns, they're inciting violence, and they're getting mad that people are fighting back. And on top of that, as these people are inciting violence and literally causing chaos, the police aren't doing anything. Meanwhile, peaceful Black Lives Matter protesters are being harassed by the police, they're being arrested by the police, they're being hit by the police's non-lethal weapons, and that should just tell you what side the police are on. The police are not on the side of the people, they're on the side of the people. They're on the side of people who want to maintain the status quo, people who want to maintain that rich people have all the power in this country, and people who quite frankly want to be racist. I was going to try and, make that maybe more of a long-winded, eloquent sort of thing, but that's the simple fact of the matter. The police are racist and they suck at their jobs and we need to get rid of them. And if you want to talk to me more about that, you can email me at mick@mySouthernExposure.site. I will not agree with any of your pro-police bullshit, just letting you know right off the bat. So I'm going to throw it over to Joseph right now so we can get things started.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mick. And to be quite frank and honest, I love that you just said you said, because there are no rules or restrictions here on our show. Because if someone doesn't like what we're having to say, they can just click off or basically something off from my perspective. There's a lot of things that are going on right now that are unfortunate for us, but we have a great way to be able to reach into people's homes that is much better way, much safer, at least currently, with COVID going on, Black Lives Matter, Hurricane Laura, politics, so many things that are going on. It's an extremely scary time period, and also in reference to religion, believe it or not. Religion ties into one of the most recent things that just developed earlier today. I'm not going to get into all the specifics about it, but I just wanted to mention it briefly. The COVID numbers continue to increase with deaths. COVID has not gone away. It's not November 3rd. They said it's going to go away just like a hiccup. It'll never be around. We just saw two different people in politics talk about two completely different ways of looking at life. One person, and I'm not going to talk about which is which, one person felt that it was perfectly fine for the people who attended their most recent speech to their followers, or I should say sycophants, and with no masks at all. The other person has not decided to have any in-person meetings at all. And when they decide to move forward with that, they're going to be doing it on a much smaller scale. It doesn't make a difference from my perspective if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Indian, Russian. It doesn't make any difference to me. White, black, anything. If you're doing something that you are putting people in harm's way, then you should not be doing that and setting an example on a glorified stage in front of the backdrop of the White House. I think it's quite, I don't even know the words to use, but everyone knows what I'm referring to. It's just one of my biggest concerns about one of many things that are spiraling downhill. But that's the COVID sneak peek about what I will be talking about moving forward. I'm going to pass it back over to Raji so she can give us a little bit of a hint about what she wants to talk about for the trans update, or whatever makes her want to talk.
Whatever makes my rubber ducky squeak, is that what you're saying? Well, first of all, I want to take time out to, I guess, acknowledge and celebrate the life of Chadwick Boseman. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his last name. 43 years old, the actor best known for his role in the movie, I'm having a mental block.
Black Panther.
Black Panther, thank you. I was getting ready to say Pink Panther. But anyway, yeah, best known for that role. And, you know, he was very private about his illness because I had no idea that he had colon cancer. And, you know, recently, well, since his death, I should say, I became more aware of the whole thing of how colon cancer seems to be spiking with men in their like late 30s and in their 40s, even though they say as a whole, colon cancer, the numbers are dropping, but it just seems to be spiking in with men. And so, you know, a lot of men, some women, you know, don't like going to the doctors. I mean, hell, I don't really care for going to the doctors either, but what I think this is going to be for a lot of men is a wake-up call to really be, you know, aware of your body and what's going on, and if there's something that doesn't seem right, going and getting checked. Now, I spoke with a friend of mine. She's a nurse practitioner. We went to high school together, and she was telling me that people that get colon cancer younger tend to not live. Like the survival rate is a lot less than when you get colon cancer when you're old. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And I asked her why. And she says, they have no idea, but that's the statistics and that's how it goes. So that was quite an interesting fact and kind of puzzling to me. But anyway, I just, it's just something how he was a trooper because he worked as he was getting treatment and he stayed low key about it. And everyone handles things differently. Some people are very vocal about when they get sick, and other people, they keep it very private. So anyway, shout out to Chad's. Oh my God, you know what? I'm losing my mind with names today. But anyway, Chadwick Boseman, shout out to him. I know he's in heaven somewhere, just hopefully soaring with God. And I'm going to pass it over to Mickey. Before I do, though, there's some stuff I want to talk about later in the show in regards to a friend calling me who happens to be transgender. She called me yesterday, and she's trying to persuade me to vote Republican. She's like, girl, you need to go into the booth and check Republican all the way down the line. So it was a very interesting conversation, and I'll talk more about it later in the show. Mickey?
Raji, I'm very curious to hear about that conversation that you had with your friend. I'm excited, and not curious to hear about where that led, and I'm curious to hear about it later. I guess for this week, as Joseph pointed out, a lot of things have happened in the news recently, and none of them are very good. I guess sort of to go back onto the subject that I had already kind of touched upon with my introduction, as you know, there's been renewed public outcry in cities across the country in response to the shooting of Jacob Blake, the unarmed Black man who was shot 7 times in the back in his car in front of his children. One thing I would like to bring up about that is that a lot of people have been using the defense of the police that, oh, well, he is a criminal and they were there responding to a call about him, and that's what you get for not listening to the police. And the fact of the matter is that no one deserves to be shot in the back 7 times, regardless of what they've done, especially in a situation where they're in front of their children, where they have not been convicted of a crime either. What about due process? We're going to sit here and talk about due process with someone like the president or someone like Brock Turner, where it's like we need to have all the facts before we ruin someone's life. But the police did not think twice about paralyzing a Black man in front of his kids and giving him due process. So I just want to say that defense of that people are saying, oh, well, he's a criminal, he deserved it, is so incorrect and so wrong and so hypocritical, because as I pointed out, they're the same people who will be the first to be like, well, we can't just accuse an officer of racism. We need to know the entire story. Like, why did they shoot someone in the back? It's like, no, they shot an unarmed citizen, and they did that without due process. And they do this all the time, but then they can take people like Dylan Roof, who did murder 7 people in a church. They can take him into custody and then take him to Burger King afterwards. So the idea that if you just obey the police, they are not going to get hurt or they are going to come out on top is not true, because we have seen many, many people do not come out on top just by listening to the police. We have no idea what happened to Freddie Gray while he was in custody, and he ended up with a broken back in custody. And it's just, I think that these protests are happening. Well, not that I think, I know that these protests are happening because people in this country can see that the police are an outdated institution, they're a racist institution, and they are acting with impunity upon the American people. Now, with that said, a lot of people I have heard speaking about these things have said things like, oh well, like it's okay, we're gonna vote in November, we're gonna change everything and we're gonna get Biden into office and everything's gonna be fine. That is not going to change anything. The police are still going to be here, and as I pointed out, the police are on the sides of these right-wing agitators. They're not arresting anyone for tear gassing Black Lives Matter protests on the street. They're not arresting anyone for firing paintball guns at Black Lives Matter protesters, yet they are very eager to arrest people who are marching peacefully. They are very eager to brutalize those people who are marching peacefully. In fact, just this past week in Los Angeles, there was a protest where they immediately made up a law on the spot saying that you could not have a shield while you're out protesting, and that was an arrestable offense. For one thing, the police do not make laws. That is not something that they've ever done, not something that they ever will do, unless you want this country to be even more fascist. And secondly, why do you think those people have defensive shields? For one thing, it's a defense. It's not an offensive weapon. It is a defensive mechanism. And why do you think that people have those? It's because they're afraid of getting shot by rubber bullets by you, the police. So I think that people just need to start, they really do just need to start paying more attention to this, because we're at a point in this country where this type of violence is happening every single week, and people just constantly seem to think that it's going to get better, that things are going to mellow out, and that is not the case. Even if Trump loses in November, all that might do is reinvigorate his base and get them out running around in their Ford pickup trucks, shooting whoever they think happens to be a member of Antifa, or who they think is going to ruin this country just because, I don't know, like we want health care for everyone, or because we think that undocumented people deserve rights and a voice within this country because they help build it and they help keep it running. It's just, I guess that's just a very long-winded way of saying you should probably be out there protesting if you're not already. And if you're not able to go out and protest, you should be finding orgs in your area that are committed to finding alternatives to the police, that are committed to defunding the police, and that are committed to finding alternative models to seeking justice in this country, because the police are not it. That's not just my opinion, that is a fact. But Roger, you have something to say. Yeah. I see.
No, what I wanted to say is, it's definitely a double standard. I agree totally what you're saying in regards to like how the police are able to handle Black men as opposed to white men. I had a conversation with this very person I talked about a little while ago that's trying to get me to vote the Republican ticket. And, she was like, well, no. And then I started to bring examples up. I was like, what about the guy a few years back here in Florida, some part of Florida, I can't remember the part, that he just went crazy and he bit the people's face off. And I know he was supposed to be on drugs or whatever, but the police were able to apprehend him without violence, without really much happening. They were able to get him into this custody. I brought up the shooting of the movie theater in Colorado. White man went in and killed all those people. They were able to apprehend him without violence. So it is a double standard. What made me, while I was talking to her, I started to think, I wonder if there is a fear of Black men in this country. Like because, a lot of the scenes you see, like it seems like the police, their training goes right out the window and they lose it. Like, because the fear takes over. I don't know. I'm just speculating and I'm brainstorming a little, but I really wonder if there's like a deep-seated fear of Black men in this country. I mean, I was talking with another friend and he made a good point. He's a man of color and he's gay. And he said to me, girl, come on, let's be real. if you see a group of black men walking down the street with hoodies on towards you, what is the first thing you're saying? Oh shit. You know, I mean, but and it's horrible to have to say that as a transgender, multiracial woman of color. But the point is, you know, when you talk about these things, you want to keep it real, and you want to, you know, look at things in a realistic way and be truthful about the climate or the way things are. So I really started to question that. I mean, for that matter, as a trans woman, if I see a group of any guys, I'm like on high alert, you know. But I'm just saying, like, it made me question, because there's been a few incidences where the police just seem like they're terrified. Like, I don't know if you all remember the one where the girlfriend was in the car. They did a traffic stop and she was filming, and he shot the boyfriend right in front of her while she was filming, and he was like panicking, like, what are you doing? I mean, and the guy wasn't doing anything. And it was like, he was just panicking. And I thought, all this training that the police go through, and like, it just seems like it goes to shit. It goes to shit. Now, whether that's on purpose or it's really that they lose it and they're fearful and they just lose it, well, that's, you know, the jury's out on that. And I guess it's, you know, case by case. And then I'll just close with this, and I'll throw it over to Joseph. Another trans girlfriend of mine, she was like, well, the police just need to be done away with. And I looked at her and I'm like, girl, I said, if you want to see mayhem, if you want to see pure mayhem in societies, do away with the police. We need policing in order to keep order in society. I don't agree with doing away with the police. I think they need to be like, the system needs to be broken down, and there needs to be like a rebirth of the police and policing. Because I said, girl, she's like, no, we don't need him. I said, okay, what if you're in an accident? Who do you call? Who are you going to call? You know, I mean, I was like throwing different to that. What if someone's breaking into your house? Who are you going to call? I mean, you know, so we need the police, but we have to really take a hard look, and they have to do something about what's going on right now in the police force. Joseph?
Just bear with me for 1 second. Thank you so much. And we're good. I know Mick is about ready to explode because of what you just said. And I agree in part with what Mick says. And I agree in part with what you say. And I'm like somewhere in the middle, which usually I'm one of the extremes. So this is kind of fun for me. But it's not fun because it's something that's serious. So the way that I look at it is the current policing force that is in effect is ineffective. It's corrupt. It's immoral. It's deplorable. And it's overly funded to substantiate political or religious purposes. From my perspective, that's the way that I look at it. Police should not be doing what they're doing, like they have been doing for so long. And it needs to be deconstructed down to nothing. So I understand when people say defund the police from the perspective of what they are doing needs to no longer be done. But then by the same token, I agree with you that at the end of the day, the first thing that I do, I've done it many times, I've called 911, and I can tell you right now, if you sound like a white girl when you're calling on the phone, those police show up in 2.2 seconds. And it sounds bad to say it that way. But instead of me talking like this, I'm like, hi, I need someone to come over and do something really quickly. Something's wrong with the neighbor. I don't know what's going on. And they are over in 2.2 seconds. And I'm not purposefully doing it, but I am purposefully doing it because I know if I'm a white girl down, the police show up and they're going to help you. And it sounds absolutely ludicrous to say, white girl down, and they're going to come and help you, but it's true. And I mean, it's just absolutely horrible, but it's true. And the part that I agree with is that the entire police force needs to be changed and reworked. It has to be changed. It has to be reworked. And it needs to be public service first. You help. You don't police and try to tell people what to do. You help. Like the people that are in our neighborhood that are close by to the house, instead of the cops driving by, a guy's laying on the side of the road. You know what you're supposed to do if you're a cop? You're supposed to pull over and give them a bottle of water. Give them a sandwich. Give them a blanket. Ask them if they need some help. Take them to a hospital. Do something. Don't just drive past them like they do not exist on the face of the earth just because they're homeless. And you know what? Myself, my partner, know probably 5 or 6 homeless people in our community that we see every single day. And we talk with every single one of them on a daily basis, face to face. We give them food, we give them water, we ask them how they're doing. Some people have some mental issues. They have good days, they have bad days. They might be screaming at other people. It happened just a month ago or less where a homeless person that we've known for over 2 years was screaming and yelling at somebody, and I was like, calm down, please. And I shared the story with you, Raji, not I think yesterday or the day before. I had to try to calm that person down because he's a good person. Even though you don't understand what that person's going through, it doesn't negate the fact that they are going through something. They are still a child or a creation in a godlike form that maybe they need some extra help. Maybe they need some extra food. Maybe they need something extra. It doesn't matter what that person's mistakes were. They still count as a human being. So that's the reason why we treat everybody the same way. We've had people come to our house and sit down and have dinner with us, just like you, Raji, just like everybody else. I'm saying we all sit down. We make a cheeseburger, we make a hamburger, we make a hot dog, we make whatever the deal is, and you go ahead and jump in the shower. You want to take a shower. Want to wash clothes? Go ahead and wash some clothes. It doesn't make any difference because we are all part of the same being, which is a human being. We are all human, and we have to be more, I don't know the correct term, more humanistic, I guess is the right word to use, more compassionate. Instead of worrying about if you're a billionaire or a millionaire or whatever the deal is, it doesn't matter. You can't take that money with you when you die. It's not going nowhere. Unless you leave it to a cat or a dog or some, daughter or son who's already spoiled. Let's just utilize something that's right off of Hot Topics. Laura Laughlin's daughters, I think, is that what it is? Becky, Aunt Becky. She got in trouble, and so did Massimo. And obviously Mick is shaking his head in the background. He can chime in a second. But the two daughters don't understand how hard both of their parents worked to be able to support and benefit them in a way. And then you look at the daughter's responses. Oh, I never wanted to go to school anyways. I never wanted to go to school. And just like put their hair off the side like it didn't even matter. And then now the parents are going to be going into jail. Granted, it's a really gross negligence because they are filthy rich. So you have, Laura Laughlin and you have Massimo. Laura's going to be in quote unquote, camp for 3 months. And then you have some people that, and I can't remember the name of the person, but there's something that's 10 times worse because someone needed food and they used someone else's food stamp card and they've been in jail for the last 3 years. So if you get food for your family and use someone else's food stamp card, you sit in jail for 3 years. But if you have enough money and you're famous and you and you try to bribe a school, it's okay. But I think the most part of that is almost the exact same amount of money, dollar for dollar, that they quote unquote bribed the colleges for, is exactly the amount of money that they're being charged by the court system in order to pay. So at the end of the day, what really matters? What are we trying to prove? Are we trying to set a good example, or are we trying to double charge for things? That's a question. Mick, over to you.
Yeah, I think that, first of all, to kind of go back to what Raji was talking about in terms of like saying that we need police, the reason that and this is something that has taken me a little while to like understand and accept, because this isn't how we're brought up. This isn't the type of society that we're raised into. It's one where we're taught, oh, bad people go to prison and they're punished for this, and that this is just the way that things are. The problem is that we don't talk about, all right, for one thing, what causes crime? Predominantly, like, what causes crime? Like, obviously there are certain things that are awful and terrible that just kind of happen because some people just happen to be awful and terrible, which that's a separate topic that I might get into if I have enough time. But just off the top of your head, if you think about the most predominant, maybe I guess like widespread types of crime, that involves things like theft or fraud or things like, I guess kind of like Joseph brought up, where it's like someone was impersonating someone else so that they could get food stamps, so that they could feed themselves. So you have to think that a lot of crimes, or a lot of things that are criminalized in this country, are things that people are trying to do to survive. For example, there was a mother out here in California who she lied about her address so that she could send her daughter to a better school system, and she was sent to jail for 5 years. And that's for trying to get a better education for her child. Meanwhile, someone like Lori Loughlin is only going to jail for 2 months. Here's the thing. I think both of them kind of like, I mean, again, she's very, like, Lori Loughlin's family and her whole family are very, very rich and very, very privileged. So it's kind of like, you could have done literally anything else and your daughter still, like, you didn't need to cheat to get your daughter into USC. You could have literally probably just been like, I'm Lori Loughlin, this is my daughter, and USC probably would have made some efforts for you, because that's what colleges do. It's not all about merit. It's not all about how involved you are in high school. Some people literally, you can just make a phone call and you'll get in. And like, for better or worse, that's how the system is. So she didn't necessarily need to do that. But this idea that we're just so quick to jump to punish everyone for certain things, when you don't really think about what it is that might motivate someone to do something, specifically when it comes to things like theft or fraud, or things that people are literally just doing to survive. I mean, you also have to think about how many women are in prison for standing up to their domestic abusers. Like, that's just another thing that, like, law enforcement has really just screwed over, because police, that's the other thing that you touched upon before, where it's like their training goes out the window. Police are only trained for about 2 months. Aestheticians, like, getting your GED takes longer than training to be a police. And when you're a police officer, you are handed a car that drives faster than most other cars. You're handed tracking technology, so you can just track and harass people if you want to. And you're given firearms. You're given lethal weapons after 8 weeks of training. And so you expect these people to not only enforce these laws, but to do it correctly, and to do it in like the pressure of the moment or whatnot. And that's just not realistic. On top of that, why is it that we have these armed officers responding to things like a traffic accident, which is exactly what it is? It's not even a crime, it's an accident. Someone might have just like lost control at the wheel, or an animal ran out, or a child ran out in the road. Like, like, these are accidents, and you have people who are supposed to be like punishing people for breaking the law who are in charge of dealing with that stuff. You have these are the people that you call when a homeless person is having a mental breakdown, instead of actually trained medical professionals or social workers who would actually know how to handle these sort of things. Obviously, I'm not naive, and I don't think that crime is just going to disappear when we get rid of police either, or that like there aren't bad people out there. But this whole idea that we're just going to punish people for their bad actions and not really look at what it is that motivates a lot of people to do these sort of things is part of the problem. And that's why we think that we need to have police, because we just want to do away with things. We just want to make it so that it's very easy to forget about criminals and to forget about the negative aspects of society, when in actuality, a lot of these problems could be solved if the money that was spent on policing was spent on things like school systems, food stamps, mental health care, health care in general. Like, I mean, if you want to think about why someone might be motivated to steal, it might be because they have super high healthcare costs and they're not able to pay for their medical bills. And it's like, what do you expect someone to do if they're just trying to survive? So I still am of the opinion that we don't need police, because this is another thing that I will say. There are a lot of activists and philosophers and general progressives who have been advocating for the abolition of police for years before I was born. And this is something that has persevered and it has stayed true, not because it's just some unrealistic ideal or just something that is just all of a sudden trending in the news. It's because this is something that people have been advocating for and have studied for a very long time now. And now that we're having these Black Lives Matter protests in this country and we're having more of these conversations about this, it seems a lot more tangible. So I think that what ultimately people need to do is they need to start thinking about the way that we operate and run the world, and think about why that is, and then think about the ways that that could change. Like, if you really think about it, we wouldn't need police if, for something like a home break-in, if you were very close with your neighbors would be looking out for you. If there was a fostering and a sense of community in places that people lived, you wouldn't have to worry about your property being stolen or someone coming to your home, because you would have a community looking out for you. There's a lot to be said about the resources that are put into policing that could be put into things like community infrastructure and, as I said before, healthcare, food stamps, stuff of that nature. I just think that, it's not even that I'm necessarily blaming Raji for this, because it's like, this is what we've all been led to think, that like we need people to punish criminals because there's always going to be crime, but we don't ever ask ourselves, why is it that there's so much crime? Like, why is it that there's so much theft? Why is it that we need to worry about people in hit and run incidents? And it's not because there's a ton of bad people out there. It's because the circumstances that we live in and the ways and the things that people have to do to survive often aren't easy, and it often pushes people to do it pushes people towards committing criminal acts, because we don't, like, this country does not make it easy to live and survive and be happy here. But that was a rant, and I went on for a very long time.
Yeah, no. A lot of what you agreed with, a lot of what you said, I agree with. The thing is, though, and I totally get what you're saying, like a lot of the crimes that happen, people are almost forced into doing these crimes for survival. But if you're a victim of that crime, like let's say, Mickey, you're walking down the street and someone comes and holds a gun to you and says, give me your fucking money, and they rob you and they punch you in the face, okay? And you're the victim, okay? and you hear, oh, this person was struggling and they needed something to eat and they went through this and that and the other. Believe me, you may understand why they did it, but you're going to want justice, okay? Because it happened to you. So what I'm saying is, like, when things happen, like I watch the ID channel all the time. Maybe I watch too much ID, investigative TV. There are a lot of good people in this world, but there's also a lot of evil, bad people. And you know, there's some people where it's gray. Like a lot of us, we have good and bad in us. And there's been times where I've done things in my life that I'm embarrassed about or ashamed about that maybe weren't the best things to do because of the circumstances. But at the same time, if I go out in the street right now and rob someone or rape someone or kill somebody, and then I try to say, oh, well, it's because of my situation. You know, I'm a transgender woman of color and I can't get a job and I've been going through such a hard time. Oh, and by the way, my dad used to abuse me when I was growing up. People don't want to hear that shit. They don't want to hear that shit. They're going to tell me, yes, we understand all of that and I'm sorry for you, but you have to take responsibility for your actions. And so I can't see getting rid of the police force completely just because of the fact that, and let me tell you, I'm more wanting some sort of policing for protection, not to prosecute and to convict. My thing is protection, because the thing is if people know that there's no policing, right? The bad ones, even if it's only 10% of our population, they're going to have a field day. They'll be like, well, you know, I'm going to go ahead and rob Mickey's house tonight while he's sleeping. We'll break in. There's no police, so he won't be able to call anybody for help. I mean, it's like, I totally feel like things have to be broken down. Like, you know, the policing that we have now is corrupt and it's horrible and it needs to be changed. I'm not saying that I agree with the policing that we have now, but I do feel in order to keep some sort of structure and order in society, there has to be some form of, I mean, hey, if we don't want to call it policing, we can call it something else, public assistance person or whatever. I mean, you know, but there has to be some form of that, because it's just like, who do you call? Look, 2 weeks ago, that teenager that was run down and killed, right? And this woman, it was a woman that did it. I'm sure she didn't mean to run down and kill that teenager, but it was a hit and run. She ran. And so do you think someone like that does that should not have to pay any consequences? Like, even if it just means them going into some sort of rehabilitation program. Because the thing is if you do something and you get away with it, mark my word, you're going to probably 9 out of 10 feel like you can do that same thing again and get away with it. So go ahead, Joseph.
Oh my God. Okay. First of all, Raji, thank you so much for what you just said. And also thank you, Mick. And I know you're dying to respond to what Raji just said. So what I think about is exactly what is happening right now. A 17-year-old boy walked down a street with a shotgun, killed 2 people who were peacefully protesting in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Is that correct, Raji, or no? Yes, Mick? Is it Wisconsin? Okay, so the fact of the matter is that boy walked right past everybody. The cops, people, killed 2 people, turned around, walked back home, and fell asleep. And then the next day, they decided to knock on his door. And unfortunately for you, Mick, it happens to be a Caucasian person, which is not your fault, because we all know that you are on the same side of the page with myself and Raji, people of color, and you are out there every moment that you get. And to be honest with you, it makes me fearful for what you do, because one of the people who got murdered was someone just like you. Someone trying to protect somebody else, trying to have a voice and try to shield them with their skateboard. That wasn't an option. He got killed and murdered, and it's a horrible story. And no one's even talking about his name because he's a white person, and another white person killed another white person. And we're talking about the first person who got murdered and shot in the back. And the fact of the matter is that everybody's life matters, but especially Black Lives Matter, because up until what has been happening lately, a lot of people of color have been sitting back and trying to be patient and trying to be calm and trusting that everything will be okay. It's not going to be okay. I think one of the best things in the world is when the basketball players stopped. And then guess what happened after that? The hockey players stopped. The baseball players stopped. The basketball players stopped. I should say the female basketball players stopped. I think that was one of the best things ever in my entire life. I'm so proud. And it's people of every color that are on those teams that basically said, you need to listen. And there has not been one word from the current administration condemning what happened at all. Not one word. I would presume maybe there might be a press release that says, I think everyone is good on both sides. Because that's usually what I should say. I think everyone is good on both sides. I mean, with, the horrible hair and whatnot. But the fact is the current administration is perpetuating hate and hurt and is not uniting the United States of America. So that's a political part of it. But the end result is that people of color have never, ever been considered equal in the United States. If you're from Puerto Rico, guess what? They don't care about you. If you're from Africa, guess what? They don't care about you. If you're from Haiti, guess what? They don't care about you unless they're making money off of you. From my perspective, that's how it feels. If you're trans, guess what? They don't care about you. If you're gay, we don't care about you. So now, oddly enough, I don't even want to use the creature's name because it's a horrible abomination in a creation of a human being. But a Christian church has now collected more than $100,000 for some 17-year-old boy who killed people. I don't know what more to say. And I know Mick was like reeling and sitting back. So I'm just going to shut up. But I mean, it's one of those things where Mick is on our side, clearly, Raji. I mean, all of us are on the same side. But it's one of those things where I worry personally, to be honest with you, Mick, about your well-being. When you're out there as a white boy and you look like a white boy fighting for us, all three of us, I am concerned that what just happened the other day could happen to you. You would be that person who jumps on top of somebody and stops them from getting killed, and then you would be killed because of some other person trying to do something that's evil. What do you have to say?
I'm actually very glad that you bring that up because obviously I know that you have brought that up to me before, that you're like, get out of there if it's unsafe. My mother has said the same thing to me as well. that is why I would like to bring up my next point, which is what are you afraid of? So either you're afraid of someone from, the right-wing side shooting me, hurting me, doing something to me, or you're afraid of the police hurting me. Because obviously the people that I'm out there protesting with are not going to go out of their way to hurt me, typically, because I'm on their side, and that's not how conflict works. But think about that for a second. Why? For one thing, you're concerned about my safety when I'm going out and expressing my First Amendment right to protest and free speech and peaceable assembly. You're afraid of my safety for that. And that's either because you're afraid of what the police are going to do to me or what other citizens are going to do to me. That brings me to my next point, which is, why have we let it get to that point? Instead of being scared for my safety, you should be concerned if a police officer can just gun down someone who is expressing their First Amendment right, or that there are right-wing militias in this country that are just going to gun down people who don't agree with them. That is scarier to me, and that should scare you in a lot of ways more than just being worried about what's going to happen to me, because that means that if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And the problem I think that a lot of people have is just they think oh, it's not safe to go out and protest, just stay at home and we'll deal with this civically, and we'll vote, we'll petition, we'll have fundraisers or whatever. And it's no, at a certain point, you've got to be out there, and you've got to be out there showing the people in power that you don't stand for racism, that you don't stand for the way that capitalism has exploited so many of us, not just in this country, but in the entire world. And again, it comes back to this idea that people have this complacency thinking, oh, it won't happen to me, that things are really just okay. It would be just better if we just all got along. The thing is that we don't all get along. And I'm glad that you guys are worried about my safety. I'm glad that I have people who are concerned about me. That's very important. But the fact of the matter is you're worried about my safety. Why? You're worried about it because of what the police or what the people on the other side might do to me. And that should be asking you the next question, what can I do about it? That's that's what gets me out there onto the streets, where I'm just if I'm not out there, and if all of us aren't out there expressing ourselves and expressing how we feel and showing fascists and showing racists that we're not going to stand for their bullshit, that's putting us in physical danger. And people need to be asking that question more. Why have we let it get to this point? Why are people that I care about at risk of dying for standing up against fascism, for standing up against racism? That should be more alarming, and that should worry you more than my safety. I get why you're worried about my safety, and I'm not saying that I don't appreciate it. I think that in turn should be making people think, what can I do to make sure that that's not gonna that nothing's gonna happen to him? And it's not just from being from telling me, oh, you need to be safe and you need to stay at home. What people need to do is think what can I do to stand up against fascism in this country? What can I do to show right-wing jerk-offs who advocate for racism and sexism that we're not going to stand for this? I think that's more important than worrying about my safety.
All right, so I agree with you and I respect your opinion, but for the same token, there are other ways to do exactly what you're doing, just like our show. We focus on things that other shows do not talk about. We get into in-depth conversations. There are more than 7,000 people a week on average watch our shows across the United States now, over the last 7 weeks in a row. So I think from my perspective, I understand what you're saying about getting out there. But I don't think personally that putting myself in potential harm's way in person because of COVID or possibly some person shooting and killing me. I'm going to share a little personal story with you. It just happened less than 2 months ago, and I think I might have talked with Raji about it, or I might have talked with Corey about it. One of the other people who've been on the show. And Loris, nice to see you. We're going to be over to you shortly to share your delectable delights. Peace out. What happened was myself and my partner were going to pick up dog food from a local place that we pick up dog food. I stopped at a stoplight. My window was down. It usually is not down. I usually have my AC kicking. She knows if you're of a certain age, like AC blowing on you 24/7, pretty much all the time. I have my AC blowing. If it's 69 degrees, that's my favorite temperature because it's inappropriate. All joking aside, my window was down. And a person came around the corner and shot a paintball at me. Luckily, it hit my door frame of the car. It shot 3 times on the car door. If it would have been less than 2 inches in one direction, it would have hit me and also my partner of over 10 years, Rick. So I understand what you're saying about what you can do and can't do about violence and this and that and everything else. But by the same token, I don't want to put myself in a situation where I am in front of violence on purpose. So I no longer drive at that intersection. I changed my route to remove myself from that intersection. I very rarely at all have gone there since that happened. If it would have been an inch in one direction, it would have hit me in the face. I would have been blinded. It would have hit my partner, Rick. 3 or 4 bullets on the side of the car. And they were just paintballs. But those paintballs splattered and spread all down the side of the car like it was bullets. That's a really scary thing to think about. So I think then if I'm at an actual protest and people hit you with a paintball, and down here in Florida, it happened to a lady and she lost her eye in Southern Florida. I don't know if you know about this, Raji, but she lost her eye. A paintball hit her and she was just being a peaceful protester downtown in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She got hit in the face with a paintball. I'll have to pull up the information, Raji, for you so you can see it. But it does happen. So my fear is not fear about who the people are. My fear is for the safety of the people that I care about and love. And obviously, I care about and love a lot of people. So you're just one of it. You can't tell me not to care about you and love you, Nikki. So you got to get over it, and you're going to have to deal with it. So, but I understand your perspective. I understand your perspective completely, and I'm not discounting what you said at all, by any means. But by the same token, there are lots of different ways to be able to be a protester. Not shopping at places, you can protest. Being on a show like the one that we do, you can protest. You can mail and protest. You can send out balloons with messages like we do and protest. There's so many ways of protesting. So I understand that what you're talking about is the way that you feel the most comfortable to protest. And I see your eyes roll into the side.
It's not that it's just the most comfortable way to protest. What you're saying, though, is that you're just going to do the forms of protest that the people in power have made that say is appropriate. Because, there's no property being destroyed if you boycott something. No one's writing news stories about petitions that are getting signed because petitions don't, in the end, do anything. They're literally just signatures on pieces of paper. The thing is that, as you pointed out, this woman was out peacefully protesting and lost her eye for doing something that she is technically allowed to do. And by acting, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be afraid of that. That is something that is very understandable to be afraid about. But more than anything, you should be angry about it, because this is the opposition's way of saying you're not allowed to take advantage of the rights that are allotted to you. And by being afraid of that and by caving into that, you're adhering to what they want you to do. They don't want you out of your house and organizing. They don't want you out in the streets showing people that we're not going to stand for racism and that we're not going to stand for bigotry in this country. That's the thing. It's like, that can be like, certainly things like boycotting and striking and whatnot can be done hand in hand with being out in the streets. But if we're going to let the opposition dictate whether or not we're allowed to go out and protest physically in the streets and disrupt things, because that is how people are going to notice, then we're screwed. Like, that's just the simple fact of the matter, because otherwise you're just going to be stuck at home. And then when they start taking over the streets, when they start taking over the stores that you go to, when they start taking over the banks, when they start taking over the post office, when they start taking over hospitals, when they start taking over things that we take for granted and things that we go to, and you're not there because you're afraid of like being out in the streets, which, as I said before, it is natural to be afraid of that. The problem is that there are bigger things to worry about at a certain point, because I understand, obviously, like, I want to live. I don't want to lose an eye. I don't want to break a leg or anything, but like, you have to at some point think about, well, okay, if I'm not out here in these streets, and like if other people aren't out here in these streets, that's how people lose their rights. That's how people get thrown into cages. That is how people get gunned down by the police, because people are hiding away in their homes and they're worried more about their own personal safety than the general rights of everyone else. And I think that this is something that we're conditioned to think like, don't fight fire with fire. Like, there's always a peaceful way to do things, and there's always like a regular way to do things. And like, people, one person that they always quote back to and throw back to is Dr. King. And the thing is he has that very famous quote about violence, and I'm going to butcher it most likely because I can't think of it off the top of my head. But he says, he's like, peaceful protest can only go so far if your enemy doesn't have a conscience. And like, here's the thing. Everyone on the opposition side, they could watch every single one of our episodes and they would not give a shit. Their personalities are not going to change. Their mentalities are not going to change. At a certain point, you need to stand up to them and punch them back and be like, I'm not going to put up with your bullshit. You are going to have to change, because sitting at home and boycotting, sitting at home and signing petitions, sitting at home and just doing like the show that we're doing. I'm not saying that that's not important and that doesn't help in its own way, but that stuff only goes so far. And there is
I respect what you're saying. I respect what you're saying completely, but by the same token, I have to ask a question to you, Mick. So, how do you think your mother would feel if you would have been that person shielding the person who just got killed in Kenosha?
I think she'd be proud. Obviously she would be devastated, and I would not want to put her through that devastation. But like, I think the other fact of the matter is it's like, what about the mother who has to, what about the person whom I'm defending? What does that mother have to think about where like she's going to lose their child? Like they're going to lose their child. It's like, you can always think of it that way in the sense of like, all right, on the very micro level, like there's going to be an impact for these actions. And yeah, that would obviously be a tragedy if I was hurt or killed. I'm awesome. Obviously that would be a huge tragedy. The problem with thinking of that though is that if there aren't people out there doing that, who are out there doing these sacrifices and honestly disrupting other people's lives in order to make other people's lives better, we're not going to see any progress. Like, that's like, we didn't get gay rights just by signing petitions and boycotting. No, they got it by throwing bricks. They got it by throwing bricks, and they got it by standing up to the police and by not caring about whether or not they were going to lose an eye. Because here's the thing, at a certain point, you don't have anything to lose. And that's another thing that I need to bring up, is that we've gotten comfortable. We think, oh, like if I go out and I protest, like I could possibly be thrown in jail, or I might be hurt, or I might this or that or whatever. And it's like, think about the people who don't have that privilege, and think about what's actually happening to people who have been keeping up this fight for for literally forever. And think about what happens if you don't go out there and fight for them, if you don't go out there and you stand up for them. Because again, it would be a tragedy if I was killed or whatever, but what's a bigger tragedy is if there are no people out there if there are no people out there standing up to fascism, if there are no people out there standing up to racist policing, like that's a bigger concern to me at a certain point than my own personal safety, just because
I hear you.
If people aren't out there doing this sort of thing, that is how fascism is going to stay in power. And like, it's this idea that we can change it all by being peaceful and staying at home and boycotting and voting is naive, because that's not how things are going to change. They're going to change by people showing solidarity, and people have to fight back, because here's the thing, the opposition is already fighting back. They've already killed 2 people. They have pepper sprayed people. They have run people over with their cars. And at a certain point, you need to get over your fear, and you need to let your anger take over, and you need to be like, this is fucking bullshit. I'm not putting up with this anymore. I don't care if you think you're going to hurt me, because I'm going to hurt you first. That's just what I'm saying. And like, I'm not saying that people can't be afraid or that people can't be concerned about my well-being. Empathy and that sort of care and wanting to like care about the mentalities of other people is how we're going to get further. That's why we're out here on the streets, because we care about not seeing people in cages. We care about people of color not being discriminated against and abused by fascist authorities. We're out in the streets because we want women, all people really, to have autonomy over their bodies and their choices. So this just all comes back to the changes that you want to see are not going to happen just from the work that is being done over your laptop screen, or like where you decide to spend your money. It's going to happen by people mobilizing, by people organizing, and by people standing up to this sort of thing and just being like, you know what, it's scary to do this sort of thing, but it is more important for the well-being and the rights of my fellow citizens and the rest of this world that I'm out here putting my life on the line and doing sacrifices that I need to do in order to preserve, or in order to at least give hope for a better future. Because otherwise, like, things aren't going to change. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I'll tell you, in regards to activism, I think that what you're talking about is probably the most powerful form of activism, going out and demonstrating and protesting. It really is, because if you look at a lot of the movements, the civil rights movement, if people didn't get out there and protest and, put their lives really at stake and in jeopardy for the higher good, and that's what you're doing, Mickey. It's for the higher good. And so if people didn't do that, I think it probably would have taken on a whole different type of form, and it may have even taken longer, to get what we got in the early 60s, 1963, 64. So yes, that form of activism is powerful. I've done it throughout my life. I've done all the different forms of activism. I've been out there protesting and picketing and stuff like that. I did that. I've done, the other things like online and, voting. Since I've been 18, I voted. I think voting is very important because people fought and died for the right. So I do exercise my right to vote. The thing about a movement, though, is it takes all the working parts. Like there's a different, I call them different divisions or different people that help out in different aspects. So we need the protesters and the picketers and the people out there. We need that. That's really the force of the movement. That's like, but then you also need the organizers that are online getting the word out, and you need. So what I'm trying to say is that there's different levels and different aspects, and each aspect is important, because if you had everyone out in the street screaming and no one's taking care of like the promotional stuff and like getting and also writing to their congressmen and their and to their senators and et cetera, and doing all of that, it all plays a part. The thing about one's life journey as an activist for myself, I don't know how old you are, Mickey, but I would imagine you're in your 20s. Okay. All right. So I done that. Like I'm in my 50s. And so there's a time where I think, just speaking, because I am a lifelong activist, and I'll probably be an activist until I die. But in speaking from someone that's been doing activism for many, many years, there was a time where I would jump to be on the front lines and out there protesting. But now in the stage and the aspect that I'm in of my life, I don't know if I would do it as fast as I did when I was in my 20s or 30s or even 40s. That's not to say that I wouldn't do it, but I just feel like it has there's an evolution to it. And when you're 50, Mickey, maybe you won't have the stamina to be out there on the front lines and do it. But hopefully there'll be the new generation that will take over and do it, And so you're leading the way. It's almost like a ripple effect. Like the ones that came before me, I stand on their shoulders. And then the ones that are after me, they're standing on my shoulders. So it's a ripple effect. But I just want to say that can you mute yourself, Joseph? Because I'm hearing reverb. Yeah. I just want to say that what you're doing, Mickey, is a testament to when someone is believing in a movement and a cause, and they're putting the cause and the higher good of the movement before themselves. And that's what you're doing, and I applaud that. And we need people like you out there. I mean, definitely. I don't take anything away from that. I think it's wonderful. And like I said, if you look at the Gandhi movement, in India, it was people protesting in the streets of India. Gandhi was the face of it. It was a nonviolent movement, but people were out there protesting. So that is a powerful thing about any movement. There has to be a ruckus, an uproar to get the attention. So thank you, Mickey, for all that you do. Joseph?
Thank you so much, Raji, and thank you so much, Mick. We have a wonderful, beautiful, blonde girl down there in the corner who is ready to talk about some great, delectable delights. Let me just say the word la. La, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Hey, everybody. Well, welcome to Essential Pleasures, and I hope I'm standing upright and you can hear me, and I'm going to assume that you can. So you might remember last week on this segment, we talked about tomatoes, and guess what? Tomatoes, part 2. Tomatoes, the sequel. I mean, it's still tomato season. I've got so many tomatoes growing in my garden, and I have so many volunteers, and those are the tomato plants that started just from the seeds that fell last year. So I've been out picking tomatoes. I'm going to show you my beautiful ones I just picked a few minutes ago. Salad-sized tomatoes. my cherry tomatoes, my yellow heirloom tomatoes, very sweet. And continuing to work with the tomatoes. But first I want to start with a little thing. I so cleverly named this kitchen tools. But these are two tools that I use a lot in my kitchen. I think once in a while I'll throw this in. Tongs. You may not think about tongs. Maybe you do. Maybe you think about them all day long. But in the kitchen, 1 or 2 pair are really helpful. They're helpful when you're cooking, picking things out of something that might be frying, or if you're serving a nice tossed salad. This is a nice way to do that, obviously, when you're using the grill. But you can use tongs an awful lot in the kitchen. Another essential tool that I really like is the egg slicer. And look at this little egg slicer from IKEA. Now, I can't tell. I don't think this little egg looks really happy, but so what? He's going to the guillotine. You take your hard-boiled egg and you put it in here and you go down like this and you get all the nice little slices. Then what I do if I'm going to make egg salad, carefully pick it out, flip it around and go down again, dump that right into my dish. Don't have to put anything on the cutting board. Everything's all chopped up really nicely. These things are super inexpensive. A lot of people don't use them. They're very widely used in Scandinavian countries because they like those open-faced sandwiches and salads, and they decorate them with the beautiful slices of egg. So we got Mr. Egg and Mr. Tom, and I might be doing a series on them, but I probably have to be animated because these guys have no personality. Anyway, we're going to talk about tomatoes once again. I made some canned tomatoes the other day. And you know how long they lasted in my pantry? Not even 24 hours, because I was a little worried that maybe I didn't get them sealed properly. So I made sauce out of them tonight, and my husband and my daughter benefited because I made my famous penne alla vodka. That's right, Raji, vodka. And I use this in the sauce. It makes it taste so good. And I use these tomatoes that this is what's great about cherry tomatoes or these garden tomatoes. They're beautiful, they're small, and the skin is very thin. And I think you want to eat the skin because most of the nutrients in a lot of fruits and vegetables in the skin. So if you grow these, you know they're organic. I take a whole bunch of these. I took 4 quarts, and that is 4 times, that's 16 cups, you math majors. And you take these and you put them in the blender, so you don't even have to take the skins off or anything. Then you just cook them down in a little bit of oil, or I didn't even use oil. I just cooked them down in a nice heavy pot, got them real thick, and I made pasta sauce. Very easy to do, and I will put a recipe for that on the website, or Joseph will actually. But anyway, this penne alla vodka, you take this delicious sauce, like I just told you to make, or you can use jarred sauce if you really want to. And you get it to a boil. You add 1/4 cup of vodka. And you just let that cook for about 2 minutes. Turn the heat down. You put in 2 tablespoons of butter. Yeah, butter. And then 1/2 cup of heavy cream. And that's what makes it creamy, and the vodka, and obviously makes the penne alla vodka. You cook some penne. You cook it al dente. You want it to be a little bit chewy still. You take that cooked pasta, put it into the sauce, stir it around, and you serve it with some Parmesan cheese. And I have it here with a little bit of basil on top. Now, we had that for dinner with a nice green salad and some French bread, and it was really delicious. Also, of course, we had a little vino. We have a little red vino because you got to have that. So you want to continue to enjoy the peppers, the tomatoes, the things in the garden that are right now, the fresh herbs. So in this dish, I didn't make the cheese. I didn't make the pasta, but I made the sauce. I grew the basil. I mean, it's kind of down homey, really, if you think about it. And tastes really good. I'll put the recipes on the website, and I'll have a little piece of this just to show you how good it is. Oh, yeah. Look how good that looks, Raji. I know she's going,
Okay, so first of all, you're making her drool, but by the same token, I already gave her pickles and deviled egg. And
I
chicken
still
and
want
dumplings.
some. I want some.
Oh, you didn't get the pickles yet?
No, no, no. I got some. I got some. No, I'm talking about. I want some of La's plate. Some
Hey,
of
you
what
know what,
she's
Rosie?
eating.
You made out those pickles and deviled eggs. That's
Yeah,
really
I
good
did.
stuff. I mean, really,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good stuff. Mhm. Should I just continue to eat?
No, no, I was waiting to, I was waiting to hear what the beautiful Raji was going to have to say. But we have an absolutely stunning man in a red shirt with the perfect head,
Oh,
waiting for the closing bell to give us a little bit of stock tips for the day. So I think we have a little Big Daddy stock tips from Da Hood. Marty Allen, over to you, buddy.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Big Daddy from Stock Tips from the Hood every Wednesday on the Rogue Radio Network. You know what I have to say right off the rip? Until about 3 months ago, I hadn't had sex in about 4 years. And then I met with Tesla. I got introduced to Tesla and I have been having great sex for like 3 months now. And tomorrow, I am the first person to announce that Tesla and I are going to have a baby, because Tesla is going to split 5-1 tomorrow, starting on the stock market. That means I'm going to have 40 babies with Tesla, because I had 8 shares, 5 split. That means 40. Let me tell you about Tesla. Here's the reason. Now, remember, I always never tell you about what stocks you should buy. I only tell you about what stocks looks interesting and attractive, and like my hot fudge Sunday homegirl, Raji, absolutely delicious to me. Number one, Tesla's going to split 5-1 starting tomorrow. Number two, they're going into the S&P 500, which means that all these brokerage firms are going to have to buy Tesla and supply them to people like you and me, because I already got some. Number three, the battery and press day on September 22nd is coming up for Tesla. Huge day where they may be announcing that they're going to have a battery that will take your electrical vehicle 1 million miles, which means you would never have to recharge the battery again. Then there's SpaceX that's coming up. Then there's the battery plant that they're going to produce batteries, lithium-ion batteries with Pacific Gas and Electric. Then number 6, the Tesla Model 3 can become a boat and go in the water. Now, people like me and my homegirl Raji, we from the hood, but the hood ain't born in us. We know you don't be driving your dumb ass in some water with a car, electric car. It's not, the last time I checked, electric and water don't go together. So even though they got a Model 3 that may go in the water, my black ass ain't going in the water. Then number 7, a firm said that Tesla stock is now been upgraded to $2,500, where before it was only $1,200. And when I bought them, they was at $983, and they're right now they're about $2,200.13.
I'm gonna just keep getting paid.
That's right. That's 7 reasons. And the last one for Tesla, they just came out with a computer chip that they're putting in pigs. They're calling it symbiosis, calling it a Fitbit for your skull. After those 8 reasons, especially that last one, I had to realize, I think Elon Musk is smoking some good-ass weed. I think Elon Musk has got the best ganja I've ever seen in my life. That's why I love Tesla. Of course, Apple tomorrow is also splitting. I got me some share of Apple. I got Macintosh. I got Honey Crisp. I got Pink Lady. I got Apple and I got Tesla. Tomorrow, I'm going to see the fruits of my labors. Hear that? Fruits. Hot Fun Sunday night. I'm working hard for you guys right here on Big Daddy Stock Tips from the Hood. Then we got TikTok, WeChat, we got Tencent. They pissed off Donald Trump. Donald Trump told U.S. companies, don't do business with TikTok, WeChat, or Tencent. Well, there's a problem, because Tencent is in bed with a lot of U.S. companies. They in bed with Apple. They in bed with Google Play. They're in bed with the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball. Well, what happened is Apple Play and Google Play have taken down the games that are involved with Tencent, who's in bed with Epic Games, who has the game Fortnite, which is a huge game. So Fortnite said, I'm going to sue you, Apple. Put my games back on Apple Pay. But Apple Pay said, no, we're afraid of that son of a bitch, Donald Trump. That son of a bitch is crazy. We ain't going to do it. We worried about our split. And then they said, Google, you next. Put our games back on Google Play. Google said, screw you. We ain't messing with Donald Trump. That son of a bitch is crazy. So now there's this big old war going on with all of those. And finally, on the biotech stocks, Moderna. Moderna, I've been telling my listeners for months now about Moderna. Well, right now, Moderna is in talks with a Japan company, with Japan itself, to provide 40 million vaccine cases of COVID-19. Big Daddy Stock Tips from the Hood. You get all this and more every Wednesday on Big Daddy Stock Tips from the Hood on the Rogue Radio Network. Just go to rogueradionetwork.com. And that's ROGUE radionetwork.com. You'll get my Facebook page there. You get my YouTube channel there. And now we're streaming audio on the Rogue Radio Network app for the Droid and the iPhone. RogueRadioNetwork.com. I never tell you what stocks to buy. I only tell you what stocks that's interesting and attractive. And like my homegirl, Hot Foot Sunday Raji, absolutely delicious to me.
Oh, good Lord.
That was
That
priceless.
is so much and
Ooh,
also priceless.
Hey,
But I'm a little jealous.
Oh,
I'm a little
Carlita, you sexy devil, you.
I'm a little jealous, but I see that Carlita is in the background.
You got me blushing. You got me blushing over here. You know what? I love an intelligent man, and he sure is. Oh my God, I really need to learn some stuff from him. The information is priceless. Oh, maybe I really would get to the bank if I listened to what Big Daddy had to say. My God.
I'm gonna just keep getting paid.
Can you toss it over to Carlita?
Hello, how are you guys?
Carlita. Carlita's in the house. How you doing?
Good, your dress looks edible, Raji.
Oh, thank you. I think I might need a little more cleavage. Let's see.
You look like
Let me behave myself. I'm sorry.
Big Daddy got you all hot and bothered, did he?
Yeah, I think so.
He does
I'm
that
ready,
to everybody.
I'm ready to take off my clothes, Lord.
You look like that. What is it, that fun stripe bubble gum that we used to all eat?
Oh yeah. I forgot the name of it.
So good.
Oh my God. It was like a zebra
Yep.
type.
And there were different ones. You look like that today.
Oh, okay. All right. You know how to ego stroke me, don't ya?
So.
All right.
So
I'm gonna step in. I'm gonna step in to try to calm things down because first of all, Raji's got to fan herself out, and she's sitting right in center, in front and center of a gigantic vent. But she's so hot and bothered because of Big Daddy. It's a little frustrating, apparently. She's still pulling out her fan. So she's going to mute her mic, and I'm going to mute my mic, and then it's over to you, Carlita.
So, new things going on this week. We opened our doors on Friday morning to some beautiful, delicious Java bistro and foot spa. So now we are a combo of making shakes and smoothies and juices, and also sitting back in a chair, leaning back, relaxing, getting a beautiful foot and leg massage as you are sipping a beautiful cup of tea or a nice, beautiful cappuccino, all in one sitting. You look hot and bothered too, Joey. Did Raji rip her clothes off? Absolutely. I'm glad you guys made it through your hurricane.
Okay, first of all, I'm sorry. I was just having a moment, and I'm so happy that I muted my microphone because I was laughing incredibly, horribly. That would sound like cackles, like wicked witches flying across someone's roof. So please do not let me fanning myself stop you from talking, sweetheart, about all things that you know to do.
So all week, well, the last few days anyway, I have been massaging people's feet and legs with our holistic foot massage techniques and reflexology. It's been beautiful. Downtown Rocky River is absolutely the place I needed to be. So I look forward to when we come visit Cleveland, because I know that you really want to come visit Cleveland, Joe. And you'll have to make a pit stop at my spa and little bistro. We have lots of healthy smoothies that are going out. It tastes like pudding in a cup, except it's healthy. I don't know how to describe that. And it also comes with either different, like large array of different like milks. And it seemed like the most popular milk this week was actually oat milk, more than coconut, almond, cow, goat, anything. But the oat milk seemed to be a really big sale. Yes, I see you wiggling your nose.
Okay, I have to ask a question. I might sound like a complete buffoon by asking this, but I don't feel bad. Really, I might be a buffoon. First of all, you look beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
especially
I wore my pearl necklace.
necklace. I was just going to say, you look very Jackie O. So, you're Carlito instead of Carlita. And this little Carlita O. But what does that mean? The milk that you just made.
Which type of milk? Oat?
Correct. Yes, oat. That's what you just mentioned. What does it mean by oat milk? How can you make oat milk or anyone else make oat milk out there?
I cheated this week and I did buy it from Whole Foods, but I have recipes now. I met a couple organic clients and they gave me a few new recipes to try for this week. And of course, the almond milk is so easy. The almond milk, you just soak your raw almonds in water for about 3 days, cleaning the water every single day. And on the third day, you pick up your almond, pinch it, and the skin like flies off. And then you add a whole, like maybe 2 cups of almonds that have been like soaking in the water, and they get actually big and plump, and then they're soft. Put them in a blender, Vitamixer preferably, and then you add filtered alkaline or whichever type of water, and then you blend it and add fresh vanilla. It is to die for. Same thing with cashew milk. Same thing with, it seems like the people that are coming in my facility, they're not ordering just cow milk. They either want almond, coconut, oat, macadamia nut, but they're not asking for, and they're willing to pay extra for any other milk except cow. Did you notice that when you go to get coffee here at all, or no?
First of all, I make my own coffee at home.
Oh.
So that's the first thing. We get our little, those little ground, like the nuts, and then we chop them up in a little machine.
Together with two.
Like this little, these two little nuts, and we just chop them up. But most importantly, I was going to ask you. I was planning on reading this whole little scripty thing, but why don't you tell the viewers at home who are watching who you are, where you are, how they can get a hold of you, and the best way to be able to have coffee and also a foot massage. Can you let everyone know at home who doesn't know you, like myself or Raji?
I would. My name is Carlita, and I have been doing nails for almost 30 years of my life. And I take care of people who need reflexology. I'm open 7 days a week, and we are located in the heart of Old Detroit Road, Rocky River, Ohio. We're in this beautiful little plaza, and I offer cappuccinos, I offer lattes, shakes, smoothies, fresh squeezed juices, acai berry bowls, biscotti, cannoli, pizzelles, and we also offer on the other side beautiful foot and leg massages from above the knee with all the myofascial tissue all the way down to the tip of the toe. And our phone number is 440-444-8827. And you can also check us out on Java Bistro footspa.com. And or you could give us a call, like I said, at 440-444-8827. That's a very
For the
large
people that are
office.
living in your area, yeah, for the people that live in your area, what is the physical address and the actual markers of where you are? Are you across the street from something, next to something, where?
Okay, I'm catty corner from Heinen's on Old Detroit Road at 19056 Old Detroit Road, Rocky River, Ohio, 44116. I am right next door to a very well-known restaurant called Stino's, and I'm also in the same plaza with Tartine Bistro, Stino's, and Flipside, along with many others. It's a beautiful little plaza. They have like a little wine festival in that specific little plaza. We have art gallery, like art festivals. And Christmas, Santa Claus comes and everybody can come sit on Santa's lap and get pictures. So that's going to be fun. They could stop in and get hot cocoa or a nice cappuccino while they're walking to every single store and getting like little treats. Yes.
It makes me wonder, because I have this, I don't know if I should say it out loud, but I have this idea of a sexy Santa.
That would be beautiful.
Like, I wouldn't mind sitting on a sexy Santa's lap and like whispering in his ear what I really want. Hey, Santa, I'd love to blah, 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 blah. Or whatnot.
There you
But I'm
go.
saying like the whole Santa thing. But I mean, I'm afraid to be around anybody. Like Raji is 15 feet away from me. She was 7 feet away from me last week. Now she's 15 feet away from me. So probably next week she's going to be a mile away because I'm just so afraid to be around people. But first of all, Java Bistro and Foot Spa, 19056 Old Detroit Road, Rocky River, Ohio, 44116. The phone number is 440-444-8827. If you need anything to be done and you want to be safe and clean and know that where you go to is going to be COVID friendly, I would say or suggest to you, I don't know any other way to say that besides COVID friendly, COVID sensitive, I would suggest that you go there. If you live in the neighborhood, go there. She's doing the best that she can, has done so much to spend time and money and effort with herself and her family and everyone that knows her to be able to open up the shop. So hopefully we can help her be able to have a good year for the remainder of this year.
Thank
Don't forget, you can always order products from her also as well. So anyways,
Yes,
thank you so much.
I put like I bought these really nice, they wrap around the entire pedicure bowl, and they are actually liners, and I'm using them for every pedicure, putting them on the complete chair and sanitizing it. But as soon as they leave, I throw the plastic completely away. I hate to use the plastic like that, but it's a better way than just sanitizing. Everything that I am using is completely covered, and I feel a little bit safer. But beautiful experiences. And I'm looking very forward to seeing everybody.
Oh my God, I swear, honey, if I lived up there, I would be in there. Oh my God, I want one of those foot massages.
Ask
I
Marty.
could just picture myself. I will say that again.
I said, ask Marty
Oh,
what they feel like.
oh my God, really? He's gotten a few?
Let
Oh,
me just tell you, Marty's feet are in such beautiful condition. He's got beautiful toes. He's got really big feet, but there's a lot
oh
to
wow.
massage.
Yeah. Well, well, they say a lot of things about big feet, but I love the fact, I love that you're saying his feet are in good condition because I love a man with nice feet.
Oh my
But
goodness.
yes, I be in your shop in a heartbeat, and I have to try one of your delicious drinks. I could just picture myself laid back and just having my feet massaged and me sipping on a delicious drink. Oh, one day, one day. And you
It's
know
so
what? Thank you so much. You're always, thank you so much for sharing about your business. And we always love hearing about it. All the wonderful tips you give us too. I actually, I actually tried something. I tried walking barefoot on on the thing. Yeah, I did it for a little bit. You have to get used to it, but I
yes.
did it, and yeah, I tried it last week actually.
See, it's like anything else. It'll just take a little bit of time, get it, just like work it in a little bit, break it through, and then boom, you're off to it. And then you will not be able to get enough of it. You'll want to do
Ooh,
it like all the time. It'll just feel like your body will be like craving for it to where you just like want to crawl up on them and just like literally walk and manipulate all of your organs and everything. And you could feel that. Beautiful.
okay, okay. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Joseph.
Okay, first of all, I gotta ask you. Okay, you gotta mute yourself when you're on. But my first question is not to you, buxom blonde. I mean, I don't know the correct way to say Raven. I don't know, whatever. Carlita, buxom Carlita. My question is, I have to talk to you first so that she can unmute herself because we're like 15 feet away from each other. There's still a little bit of an echo. My question for you is, Raji, you didn't tell me that you did the rock thing. And then my question is, how did it feel? I've never done the hillbilly walk, is what I call it.
It actually felt pretty good. I felt pretty good. Like I said, you have to get used to it because at first, when you're doing it for the first time, it's almost like it hurts a little bit, but not like hurts where you can't take it. It's just kind of like Carlita was saying, breaking it. You have to break yourself in. I've been broken in many times, honey, in many different ways, but not that way. So that's no, but I could see where it could be beneficial because of all the pressure points being stimulated. So
Oh,
yeah, so I'm gonna try it again. I'm gonna try it next week. I mean this coming week again and see.
just try to do it maybe like 3 times a week at least. Put socks on,
Okay.
thin socks so your feet stay clean and just do it. But I recommend that to everybody. Do at least starting to try. And it works really, really good for people who have plantar fasciitis or different, anything that they need their feet massaged a lot. It truly, truly helps. For me, when I was not wearing high heels, when I was building my facility, my calves and my shins and my ankles hurt me so bad. But then I got back in my high heels and I'm good. I'm back to going, 12 hours a day and whatever.
Oh, good.
But I love the smoothies, the shakes.
You
Ugh.
You know what? I admire you so much because you're such a businesswoman. You're such an entrepreneur, you know? I admire you so much.
Thank you. I admire you, Raji. Watching your
Oh,
videos and just
thank
seeing
you.
everything you've been through, it's amazing.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
You can do your close.
Oh, well, on that note, I guess it's time for us to close. So I want to thank everyone for watching again. Looking forward to seeing everyone next week. And again, don't forget to leave your comments. We want to hear from you. Any suggestions that you might have, any topics that you may want us to discuss, by all means. And if you want to get a hold of me, it's Raji at mysouthernexposure.site. And back to Joseph. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you so much, Raji. I greatly appreciate yourself and Mick also, as well as Marty and Laura and Carlita. So just to reiterate everything, if you want to get a hold of Mick, it's Mick at mysouthernexposure.site. If you want to get a hold of me, it's Joseph at mysouthernexposure.site. In addition to that, you can always get a hold of Laura. I should say Laura at mysouthernexposure.site as well. I'm going to say a special thanks to Marty Allen, who just happens to be Big Daddy's Stock Tips from the Hood, who sometimes is our technical producer. And thank you to Laura Farrell as our executive producer. And also a big thanks to Carlita as well. If you want to get a hold of her, you have a lot of information to be able to do that so far. And apparently I set it off to the side in the wrong spot, so I cannot talk about it right now. But I do want to talk about a couple of serious things before the end of the show. So there are several things that are necessary that I didn't get a chance to talk about. In reference to the CDC with flu statistics and also COVID and also Sturgis, there's a lot of bad things going out there, but the most important thing is to remember some of the names of the people who have died already here in Southern Florida. And I have to mention these names. There's only 10, so I hope you can all appreciate me taking the time to read them out loud. Rosemarie Gabriel died on March 24th. Roderick Friedman died on March 24th. Charles Babcock died on March 24th. Rachel Sally died on March 24th. Louis Alpiste died on March 24th. Frederill Rikus died on March 24th. Melissa Boyce died on March 24th. William Sandy died on March 24th. Selwyn Thorner died on March 24th. And Natalie Miller died on March 24th. These are just some of the names, and we're going to continue to read them on a regular basis. I think that it's important to remember that some of the numbers to some people are actually people's names. One of the most important things is, even though all the information that we're getting is questionable, it does not negate the fact that these people died on the day that they did. It's a sad thing. It's something that we should pay attention to. And if it wasn't for what's happening now, maybe we would not pay attention to people who die on a regular basis. In addition to that, the average flu deaths for the 2019 year were 34,200 deaths. That's for the entire flu season in the entire country, just to put that in perspective. 35.5 million cases of the flu for the year of 2019, with 34,200 deaths. Unfortunately, the part that a lot of people are not kind of getting, and it's disturbing to me, is that with only 6 months, 5.9 million cases, which is a pale comparison to 35 million. However, 182,000 deaths out of that 5.95 million cases. These are numbers that are hard to understand and actually get through your head. In reference to a recent Sturgis County memo that they sent out, they had 365,979 people who came to Sturgis. Out of that many people, 650 people were tested. 26 were asymptomatic. I'm just going to ask everyone at home to take out a piece of paper. 365,979 divided by 650. It's a simple number. That's 563. Take that number, multiply it by 26. That means that 14,638 people potentially that who were at Sturgis were asymptomatic, didn't have any symptoms, and actually left that party, facility, weekend, biker thing, and are now taking it home. They came out with a little news report that they had a mass testing. You can do the math just like I did. That's 0.001% of the people who were actually there. It's just one of those things where we're all not kind of confused. We are all confused with what's going on. But you cannot misinterpret basic data. It's all about us being safe. We all have to be safe, and we're all trying to figure out how to do it together. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat or independent, if you're black or if you're white or whatever it's going on in your life, to be honest with you. We all have to try to be safe, but some things are being spun in different directions for political reasons to make things look better or worse, and it's up to us to all make that decision. So what is actually fact and what is actual fiction? I suggest that everyone at home does the same thing that I do on a daily basis. Don't just don't just look at one source or two or three or four. Don't just look at what's convenient for you to want to listen to or read or subscribe to. Do a little bit more, do a lot more. It's very important that we all are more actively participating in our lives, because it's not just about us, it's also about our children. Even though I don't have any children, there's a lot that have been born. There's a lot of people out there that have children, and actually a lot of people who just gave birth during this crisis. So it's not about you or me, it's about them. We have to try to do whatever we can to protect them. And I want to thank all of our 60,000 plus viewers and say thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week, and have a good night. Okay, I ended the meeting